everybody, it's Ari, and I'm here to read a Starlight Over Detrot noir tale. One chapter, just one chapter. Chapter 16. Hey Alexa, will you turn on my TV? Okay. I keep my voice changer on my TV, so that's why I'm turning it on. Because I don't know if Queenie's going to be in this one. Okay, let's find out how long ago was February 20th, 2013. As of this writing, it was, it's less than 3,000 days ago. And then let's come over here to see if anything posted on April 15th. Oh, I have 4 entries. Okay. Oh, My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. And air. Season 1. Episode 23. Oh. Seven. Seventeen. Okay. Okay. Oh, this is February. Let's do calendar, and we're talking about the 20th. Okay, I'm sorry. That's just funny. So, control copy. Okay. And I don't have to hit enter so many times. I just like doing it. Alright, now that we have that, I already know I'm going to have a whole bunch of who's who, so I'm going to come over here and make the first couple that I found. Control copy. That string. I get why the format's done like that, but I can't have commas in my labels. Okay. So chapter 16, but why will you say that I am mad? There we go. Ooh, was it nauseous? My head. It's not like I got up. Okay. Cadaver. And then it gets a who's who. Polish. Up. Cadaver 43062. Patient name. String quartet. Developed a case of a wandering torso syndrome induced by a not quite passing car. Remaining limbs may make an excellent support for a credenza. Family did not seem to appreciate this fact. Patient name, card catalog, self-inflicted alphabetization, due to decimal system not conducive to organ function. Made easy for autopsy, though. And it's properly named. I'm gonna give it a category. Hey, is it like Crazy Leg like a thing? Hey, MLP FIM Crazy Legs. Okay, let's try. Okay. I don't think he's a thing. That's fine. It was worth asking. Alright. So let's jump back over here. So it's a good number. Crazy eggs. Who's him? Hey. Crazy eggs. Determine case of the congeals. What the? Oh. That makes actually a lot of sense. Okay. Come on. Slip stitch. It's right there. It's a book. And he gets a who's. Oh yeah. Probably should have tagged the other things, but we're okay. So slip. Notes made during the writing of Dr. Slipstit's amazing almanac of anonymous anomalies, published through staggeringly Random House. Hearts belong in a pony's chest, beating the steady drum of life. They belong on Hearts and Hooves Days cards, all neat and friendly with messages of love. One might even see a heart on Heart's Warming Eve. Oh, I don't think I have this holiday. Can I do something? Holiday. Okay. I don't have hearts and whatever. Fine. Holiday. Who's who? Midnight, please. 1500. You also get FIM tag. One might even see when a heart's warming. Eve card. Crap. Heart's warming Eve. Yeah, I have it. Alright. Lighting the way through the dark and cold. One place a heart definitely doesn't belong is in a drawer. If a heart is in a drawer, something's gone wrong in the world, and I believe every pony should just sit down, take some breaths, and wait until things make sense again. Sadly, that is a luxury afforded to few, and never those wearing badges. Kid, breathe. Breathe. I had a papal statue over Swift's mouth as she hyperventilated. For once, thanks, princesses, she managed to hold off puking her orange little guts up. Taxi sat in the corner opposite of the dresser, and its grisly contents humming one of her chants to herself and looking peaceful. It was a great act. But I could see the tick in her left eye every now and then. When the drawer had popped open, all the switches in my brain that controlled conscious thought shut off. I may have trolled a little, but at that point, nobody in the room was looking at me anymore. There in the middle of the drawer was an equine heart. It was glistening with what might have been moisture, sitting in a little box of velvet and silk handkerchiefs, kept it safe and comfortable. Zebra rooms dotted its surface around the neck of each large artery, and the thick white diamond nestled amongst the bundle of tightly wound wires at the center. I might be an earth pony, but even I have a sense when something is just loaded with the wrong kind of magic. The fleshy parts of the heart should have long since rotted away, hardened, or at least shown some signs of aging. And yet they were flawless, pristine even. In front of the box engraved was the letter C, hammered in solid gold plate. Some might say it shouldn't have been a great surprise. After we'd seen Jingle Jingle's mother upstairs to find the heart sitting in his private collection, but I must label any group of the ponies who would say such a thing with a collective of idiots. The old cliche about homicide detectives being able to get inside the heads of the killers is lovely propaganda, but in truth, it's bullshit. We don't get inside their heads. We notice patterns. We establish motivation. We put together reasoning from the twisted wreckage and sense of horror that the killers leave behind. What we don't do is crawl inside their brains. I've seen cops who thought they could do that, and nothing could come from empathizing too closely with murderers. The best one can hope for is to sympathize convincingly enough with them to give you something that'll let you put them in jail. Hence, opening the drawer and finding a heart that looked like it just come out of somebody's chest instead of was still came as a bit of a shock. Swift started breathing, finally started to slow down, so I gave her the bag, and she clutched it to her face, so the meager paper fibers might somehow shield her from the sickness of the house. "Sir, what is that?" she asked. I thought about not telling her, lest it provoke some industrial bakery cookie tossing, but not doing so would have led to all sorts of issues down the road. And besides, what plausible lie could I have told? It's the brother's heart. I tried to sound calm, despite the pissed off crashing of my own pulse in my ears. Cosmo's dad said he went to a zebra doctor, which kept his son alive when he was dying, and the witch doctor gave him a new heart. No idea why it's not rotted. Probably magic. Oh, okay, Swift replied, holding the bag to her mouth. Or shortly to her face. You did good. Comforting banter was a new thing for me. I'm not certain how well I pulled it off. I'm gonna have to take a few of those anti-nausea pills meds myself after this day is over. I couldn't see her mouth, but her breathing calmed a little bit, and I like to think she smiled. Taxi was still in the opposite corner of the room, sitting on her impossible rear leg folded up position on a work stool, resting her forehead hooves on her knees. Her lips were moving, but her eyes were closed. I moved over to her side and hefted my butt on the bench beside her, trying to emulate the funny upright sitting style kids these days seem to enjoy. Her ears flitted in my direction, but she didn't acknowledge my parts. Sweets, talk to me. No, I'm going to be angry for another 5 minutes. It's not my fault. 5 minutes. I hopped off the bench and moved away. The 5 minute timeout rule is a long established coping mechanism for my relationship with Taxi. She doesn't make use of it terribly often, but when she does, it generally means that she's less than 4 minutes from assaulting the nearest loving thing that if she doesn't get those 5 minutes to take her mind somewhere else. Instead, I returned to the door. I couldn't help the odd feeling that the thing was watching me, and with magical artifacts like that, it's best not to take chances. So I reached in and flipped the lid and pushed the box closed. You know what? No, I don't want it to be at 12:30. There we go. That's better. Sorry, guys. All right. Okay. Instead, I returned to the door. I couldn't help the odd feeling the thing was watching me, and with most magical artifacts like that. Oh. It's best not to take chances, so I reached in and flipped the lid of the box plush closed. I pushed the box and its disturbing contents aside and immediately felt a light of hope as the jewel inlaid book tipped forward, falling neatly into my right forehalf. With great fear, I picked up the diary of Ruby Blue and felt its comforting weight on my chest. From just inside the binding, a pea-sized brown ladybug wiggled its way out and puffed up to a normal size, returning to its normal red and black color scheme. I gave the creature a light pat on the head, and it winged its way up the stairs, presuming it would find its mates. Patting my coat, I found a mostly empty pocket just inside the collar and slipped the book inside. The tension in my neck relaxed just a bit for having it back in my... Sorry, guys. Wow. Back safely in my possession, my error undone. I almost missed the last item in the drawer. It was nearly the same color as the wood. It seemed to be a tome, but not like any I'd ever seen. The cover was solid brown with an unusual texture, made of something I wasn't familiar with. As per standard operating procedures when dealing with magic, or dealing with what might or might not be a magical item, I snatched off a long ruler, the nearest workbench, and did what putties have been doing since time immeasurable and more burial when comforting the note. I poked it with a stick. When nothing happened upon initial probing, I used the edge of my ruler to lift its cover. Still nothing. No explosions, no screaming, no attempting to fly out and eat my face. Granted, such results are never a perfect indication of future behavior, but I felt reasonably assured that it wasn't going to do anything really nasty. I lifted the cover all the way open and read my eyes on the page. Kid, we've got it. We've got his ledger. I called and swept, and she left that, tossing her paper bag to one side. What, really? Yeah, really. I picked up the book, spilling open the desk, and it ran down a row of figures. I think it's some kind of accounting jargon. PT, 2 white pedal, SB, and DT, handle, Equi, 2000 what? Ledger, book, Cosmo. Man. Really? Almost a month until my... Okay. Hi. Time is actually going kind of slow. Actually, you know what? Okay, that... Alright. Okay, you need a who's who label. Taxi rose from her sitting position, brushing off dust off her bottom. My pedals, my pedal. It's a massage parlor about 3 miles from the Monte. PT is probably protection. Also, music extortion, taking protection money. I bet BT and DT or whoever he sent to get the protection money. Acquired might be short hoof for acquired. In 2000, be how much they got. My brain immediately started to glaze over the page. What was digging through the book, translating page after page. You're right. Right, you're in charge of ledger. Picking it up in my teeth, I passed over my brain, who immediately dropped and fell back, wiping her mouth violently in both hooves. Oh, oh, that's vile! She spluttered, trying to scrape her tongue. What? What is it? I looked down at the seemingly harmless little tune. That book's cover is made of leather. She spat, making a motorboat sound with her tongue. Then kicked the book across the floor at me. Wait, real leather? What other kind of leather do you think I was talking about? She barked, tearing through her saddlebags until she found a package of chewing gum. I bet Cosmo thought it was some sick joke. Swift set her paper bag to one side and edged over, running her hoof over the book slightly. Sir, it's cool. Soft. What's wrong with... What did you call it? Leather? Griffin's mother's smugglers sell it. It's soft because some creature used to be wearing it. I held out my hoof and Taxi's slapped a stick of gum in it. It's skin, kid. Leather's some animal skin. Lifting the book in both hooves, my partner smelled it lightly. It smells good. Before my partner can get any stranger, I pushed the ledger back against her and said, then you keep track of it. We can decipher the whole thing as soon as we get a quiet moment. I think what we got for the recordings for the Vivi aren't here, and I don't feel like digging through any more of Cosmo's dirty laundry. You think Cosmo's already moved them? Bet against me, and I think I'd win. Easy. I replied, spitting the gum in my hoof and holding it out. Taxi shook her head, and I went on. Either way, the ledger might be our saving grace. So sick joke or not, you're gonna have to read it. If I'm gonna dig through that, then you're gonna let me have a weapon, right? My driver's voice, and just a little too hopeful for her intentions to be noble and pure. Weapon? Our weapon? Sure. Lethal? Not a chance in the world. I responded, pulling my hat off and tossing my mane out so it settled out of my eyes. Picking buckshot out of my kitty mark is not how I want to spend my weekends. Get yourself a big zebra stick you can hit things with, or a bazooka full of chili powder. Otherwise, drop it. Okay. Taxi sounded slightly dejected, but I could hear one of her special notes of duplication and cleverness somehow buried under the surface. And in the back of my head, I started writing that threat. Slip to requisitions. All right. That group of somewhat vengeful ponies was entirely too capable of giving my trigger-happy best friend an assault rifle with the rubber bullets and leaving me bruised beyond recognition. Something tingled in my mind that made a noise like a fire alarm 3 inches behind my radio. I slapped a hoof against the side of my head. staggering to one side as the ladybugs in my mane did its damnedest to destroy my hearing. Based on Taxi and Swift's reactions, they were having similar things. Sunshine, sunshine, ladybugs awake. I should have heard the dreadful noise and immediately cut out. The insect flew out of my hair, and I offered it my forehead and clapped my hooves together and shook my tail. Okay. The ladybug network made a buzz, and more passing images than usual seemed to be incentive relevant to myself. I saw outside my apartment complex a dozen little insectoids fixate on the house on Cosmo Bloom's Road. A number of ladybugs were in the night trotter buzzing around the 8-track player. Had I a television, I would have been slashing the air to try to find whatever they were trying to warn us of. Danger? I thought impatiently. My perception slid and changed until I shifted until I was peering in the windows of the house, and I slid backwards. The tinted windows of the driver identity kept anonymous, but I could see at least 6 ponies moving behind the darkened glass, and I pushed one of my eyes closer to the license plate, and it said, "Hammer down. Hammer down. King Cosmo's kitty mark for hammers. Leaving. Need out this instant." Conveying the urgency without the lips is difficult, but I somehow managed. I was out so fast my ears popped. Okay. We're going now. Cosmo is up the street and coming home. I gasped. A sharp pain burst behind my eyelids. Leaving that ladybug network isn't meant to be done so quickly. Kid, do you have the ledger? Right here, sir. She opened her combat jacket, showing one of the armor punches stuffed to capacity. You're on point. Taxi in the middle. I'll take up at the rear. Head out and let's go for the car. We started a headlong charge up the stairs, but halfway my kitty mark did something that sent me stumbling against the railing. Just for a second, as though all the blood in my body had rushed to my flanks. My tail jerked as if it had been pulled, stumbled back down 3 steps, and then the sensation was heaving and somewhat unfinished was overwhelming. I shouted to my partner, "Keep going. I'll be right back. Park up the street." Taxi threw me a questioning look, and Swift started to slow down, but I met my driver's eyes for a half second. She nodded, pushing the rookie ahead of her as I darted back into the basement. Dim, hellish light were coming off the bulbs, didn't provide much luminescence, but I stood there among the dozens of dangling hammers and displaced paper stacks, half-completed objects, and waiting for some further sign. Talent or not, kitty marks are not the most reliable crime-solving mechanisms. I, unlike most decent cops, preferred observation and awareness to magic and spiritualism. While now and then the magic and spiritualism does come in handy. Most of the time it seems to be there just to drive you mad, like right then. Time was a factor here, and was just waiting for a signal from on high, or was often the case, my butt seemed to be a recipe for disaster. But I've yet to have such a flank signal be completely meaningless. I waited about 10 seconds, 20, 30. I was starting to think I simply managed to tug on the steps. Around 34, I proved to be very wrong. When it happened, there was no warning. My entire body sized up, every muscle cramped like I'd stuck my hood in the cab's engine while it was running. I was left shaky, my limbs burning, and my chest was tight. My kitty mark let off another prickle and centered on one particular corner of the room. I wanted to be some kind of awful magic King Cosmo unleashed and to disable every pony in the house, and I'd gotten lucky. Unfortunately, the feeling was all too familiar. It was something I woke up with every day and went to bed with every night. It preyed in the back of my mind, gripping my conscience with an overwhelming command that left me breathlessly fired. It was a heartbeat coming from the dresser. I not. Perfect. Copy image address. Forcing myself to move, I ran to the stacked drawers, tore open the secret panel. It hadn't locked when it was closed. But considering the mess we made finding it, it was unlikely the mobsters would be unaware that somebody had broken into his house. The box looked so innocent, almost peaceful. The golden letters carved were fantastic attention to detail. It might have been just one more symbol of Jingle's depravity, but it was beautiful. No, I told myself firmly. No, his name is Cosmo, and I can't let myself forget that. He stole his brother's name and made his own. Jingle Jangle was a sweet boy who died with his brother. Cosmo is the pony who's going to try to kill you. Cosmo is the king of A's, the pony you're going to bring down. Without quite realizing what I was doing, I flipped open the box. The heart of Cosmo's brother sat there, quietly thumping to itself like a chessless ticker. It was the most natural thing in the world. My hoofs reached towards the crystal at the center of its undercard, but my toe touched the cold surface. It gave a jarring burst of energy that coursed up my leg, and again every muscle in my body clenched. No blood pumped through, no brain controlled it, but something deep within the organ was very much alive. Reality snapped back as the ladybugs thrilled loudly in my ear. I shook my head, then clapped the box closed, yanked it out of the drawer, jamming it into one of my enchanted pockets. I sprinted up the stairwell. As I turned towards the door, the insect behind my head let out two short, sharp beeps, and I skidded to a halt. You know what? I can do this. Where's my mouse? I'll do the short bleeps. I won't do the long ones. I skidded to a halt. There was sounds coming from the other side of the door. It wasn't the outsider's healthy grind. It was softer, without a crackle of the unshielded and arcane electrics or the high-powered words of a luxury Vic. It was a luxury villa. The car door slammed and 4 hoofs hit the pavement, and then a second door opened. There's a tiny part in every pony's mind that wants to wait to see what happens. I'd long since taken that part out of my mind out behind a barn and shot it. Scanning my options, I settled on the back door. It had a straight line of sight from the front, but jumping through a window wasn't appealing, and hiding, hoping Swift wouldn't do something rash, was even less so. Light-hoofed as I could, I rushed down the carpet hallway and made it back for the door just as the heavy treaded hoof steps started up the front porch. I pulled the handle, twisted it, and stepped into midair. The front porch was a beautiful piece of house construction. The back porch left a really frightening amount to be desired, largely because it was still a stack of 2x4s covered in tarp sitting up against the fence. I pitched off the back step as the doors swung shut behind me, collapsing into many inches deep mud. Laying there, I waited to hear the door above me open, but once more the princesses were smiling on me. Nothing. Squirming out of the clinging dirt with a number of wet, squelchy noises, I pressed myself against the back of the house and shimmied across to the side. Peering down the gap between the houses, I could just see the front bumper of Cosmo's limo. Where was Taxi? I didn't want to try the drainage dip running between the row of houses, and I was in a more inhabited collection, of streets. I didn't want to try the drainage ditch running between a row of houses I was in, and the more inhabited collection a few streets over. There was a dead cat floating in it, and as my day included enough foul events without adding the splashing around in some fowl's deceased pet, I left to swim as a last resort. The next house over was shabby, decaying affair whose rear had been let go almost completely. I was thankful it was. It made finding a place between two fences of flats that much easier. Behind me, I heard the click of the door and froze. Posturing myself to the fence I just climbed through, some pony gave a bullish snort as the door crashed shut again. On the empty street, without even a benefits of a bird song in the tree, the noise was deafening. I made an effort to breathe, and I started hopping fences again, occasionally peering onto the street. My partner and driver were well and truly off the radar. My frustrating groaning, I didn't even register the soft tone until it was almost on top of me. 10 ladybugs, tightly grouped, zipped out of the sky and landed on the bridge of my muzzle. I crossed my eyes and swatted at them. Hey, off. Not a police arrest. Where's the car? I whispered urgently at the whirring alarm. The insect did a quick mid-air pirouette and arranged itself to the arrow pointing over the next fence. It was a good thing that Cosmo's neighborhood was a remnant of the styling period, when treated wood was favored over chain link. Climbing chain link in hooves is not pleasant. Still, it wasn't going to be easy. After hopping 12 more fences, my legs were starting to feel like some pony had doused them in flaming napalm, and bruised my shoulder joint, and my bruised shoulder joint was screaming for rest. I slowed to catch my breath and noticed they seemed to be making. I seemed to be making my way around the edge of a cul-de-sac. Creeping down the short alley between two houses, my heart fluttered at a truly glorious sight. It may have been fluttering from overexhaustion, but I chose to take it as a sign of joy rather than of how badly out of shape I was. The knot trotter was sitting there just inside the half-open garage attached to one of the other empty homes. Just across the street, the garage, dark inside, as if if I hadn't been looking for it, I might have missed it entirely. But it was there, my salvation in vehicle form. Working my way across, I circled around, clambering through one backyard after another, until I convinced myself it might be better if Celestia banned fences altogether. While a few were easy enough, most involved a jump or some undignified scrambling, but finally, at about the point where running for my life was taking a backseat to wording the banning petition, I made it to the final house. I was sweating in every place it was possible and wishing yesterday's rain would return so I might have a bit of relief. Journey over, I plucked my behind on the rear seat and stopped and just let myself pant. I was so worn out, I barely registered the door behind me opening. It might have been my blood flow issue from exercise or my adrenal gland having drained from multiple jumps or times in a short period, but I couldn't even muster a solid surprise jump. Hardy, sir! Perhaps, just maybe, it was time to have a nap. Right there seemed good. In spite of not finding the recordings and almost getting caught by the megalomaniac creep himself, which would have probably ended me as a pony skin rug in the dining room, I felt inexplicably good. My limbs ached and my lungs hurt with every breath, but we escaped. I had another piece of the truth, the capital letters and all. It did, however, leave to one burning question. Why did I take the heart? Why did I risk becoming a trophy for Cosmo to hang over his fireplace? Because my cutie mark told me to seemed as an incomplete explanation as that old Celestial Works mysterious way cop out. Why did it tell me to? It felt right. Yeah, that wasn't much more complete answer, but at least it was true. It had felt right. The heart was a wretched hunk of flesh and metal conjured up from the imagination of a crazy zebra with too much mechanical creativity and not enough common sense. But buried under the horrors of its creation, some tiny piece of a boy in a painting, putting on a strong face despite his fading spirit, was still there. The spirit called to me, and I had no ability, no will to ignore it. Maybe he wanted me to free him. Maybe it was the magic of a cutie mark leading me to create a great injustice. Or maybe the zebra's spellcraft had some residue narcotic effect on my mind and flank. All those sound perfectly reasonable in the light of my near complete exhaustion. I could still feel the heart thudding back and forth in my pocket in time to my pulse, like a happy kitten that's found a friend. Now and then it would settle, but I would be too freaked out and tired to give it its continued animation much deep thought. Medical artifacts were not a category. Magical artifacts are a category, not my department. If my lock held out, Cosmo would not immediately realize who burglared his house. If he somehow put together that it was the stupid cop and that I was working for the Vivi, then His unstable mind just might decide to assault some sort was worth the enormous number of potential lives lost to recover his brother's heart. I didn't want to find out if that might be the case, but I was too shagged out to even lift my head, much less come up with an immediate action. Taxi needed time with Ledger, and I needed rest. Oh, dang. That's probably a little too spoilery, but I don't care. I I need something to distract myself. All right. After my short, dizzy spell, my partner and driver managed to wrestle me into the back seat of the cab without too many questions asked. It might have looked to the untrained eye like I passed out, but that's was suspected. Detective ponies don't have fainting spells. We have combat naps. After my short dizzy spell, my partner and driver managed to push me back into the back seat of the cab without too many questions asked. It might have looked to the untrained eye like I passed out, but that was defective. Defective ponies don't have fainting spells. We take combat naps. I'm sorry, I took off my glasses because, let's just say my glasses suddenly need to be cleaned. With my scruffy, muddy tail wrapped around my body, I let myself close down for a while Taxi wormed her way down a side street around the curve of the road, keeping us just out of sight of the King Cosmos limo. The street smooth, and for a short time, I let myself enjoy the feeling of once again defied death. Time was passing unmarked, and the motion of the road under the vehicle was delightfully relaxing. Another nap was right on the horizon when Swift asked, "Sir, why did you go back?" Huh? She asked, "Why did you go back down there?" And you better answer her, you stupid ninny. Taxi cut in, pulling back on the hoof brake and throwing us to the curbside. She turned to face me. "I'm not paid to drive for crazy and stupid. Just one or the other. Not both at the same time." Oh. I struggled to my side, plucking the box out of my pocket and setting it down on the seat in front of me. It wasn't making much noise to speak of, though. If one looked closely, it was easy to detect a slight rocky motion. Got a feeling. "Hardy, that's why would you take that awful thing?" Taxi sputtered, reeling back suddenly. "Bargaining chip." I replied, though maybe that was only partly true. Seeing the heart called to me was a recipe for disaster, even considering our long-standing reliance on feelings. Whatever else she might be, Taxi wasn't any more of a fan of the dark magics than I am. And though there might be some bit of dead pony residing in that meaty agama, would likely turn her stomach almost as much as it was turning mine. There's no sense in alarming her. An alarm taxi is a dangerous taxi. Besides, the organ didn't seem malicious, just bizarre. "You're insane! That's your problem, right?" My taxi railed. "I just watched that huge bastard walk in there, and I was convinced I was going to see him dragging a carpet full of you in a 10-minute time, leaking all your vital fluids. Look, I'm fine. We got away. That's what matters." I held open my cut to show my entirely unbullet riddled body. "The box might be the best chip we have. Could be the only way we stop Cosmo from shooting us long enough to get me to offer him a deal." "A deal?" My cabbie's voice raised with each word. "You don't deal with ponies like him. You lock him in a deep dark hole and let the therapist take out the evil parts of the brains. You stick him in cages for study. You don't make deals with them." "This won't be a compromise. It'll be a deal," I answered tiredly. The expression on her face was the distinction was lost on her. She might be more inclined to pull my head off than to relax. I continued hurriedly before the violence could ensue. "Compromises are where no pony gets precisely what they want. You can make deals where the one party walks away pissed off while the other decks a little drip. What's important is Cosmo walks away forever." After a moment's thought, she relented. "I'm going to take it out of your hide if you get yourself killed doing this, Hardy, I swear." "Won't that be difficult if I'm dead?" "I will find a way." "So, where are we going?" Now, I'm taking a little bit of liberties with this taxi's promise. Because I know it's not named names, but it does. It does mean something, and it will be used again later. I turn to Swift. Kid, thoughts? I asked, fighting down a yawn. Sir? Her wings half extended in surprise, almost swatting me in the face. I asked her thoughts. I reiterated, pushing her feathers away from my nose. Where should we head? The Vivi would be the first place I would consider, but I don't know if Crosbo can track either this box or that ledger, so I doubt it'll take him long to put together what happened. Even if he's not sure, the first thing he'd check after he discovers his house has been raided is the drawer. If it's possible, I'd like to keep where we're working. Like to keep who we're working for a little bit secret. I'm also damn tired. I'm also too damn tired to come up with anything. So what's the plan? My partner's face from confusion to comprehension to and then sidelined briefly to fear before settling on deep contemplation. After some thought, she got a broken glint in her eyes. Sir, can we put wherever we go on the department's tab? Could be our last case if it goes poorly, so why not? If we pull this off, they'll pin medals on our chests or fire us. Or both. Either way, it won't be a problem. My dear, sweet, naive little partner heard the word medal, and everything else after that was just so much babble in the wind. Rising up to a close attention as she could in the back seat, she lifted her muzzle high and announced, I know a place, sir. No pony would ever look for us there. I want to note that every horrible dream I've ever had transcendent living centered around theme hotels. I'm a pony who requires a certain degree of sneering indifference from staff in different establishments before I start to feel genuinely comfortable. I won't eat a daisy burger unless it's flavored with cook's phlegm in that first fight. It lets me know where we stand and that I'm leaving the right tip. The desire to stay in an adult fantasy world where employees are chipper and appear to be cheerfully enjoying their own public communication is a mystery to me. I don't need some pony in a ridiculous hat catering to my every whim. If the room's got a mini bar that contains actual booze rather than tiny bottles full of cinnamon mouthwash residue, it's confusing. You can't be serious. Well, Hardy, she's right about one thing. No one in their right mind would ever look for us here. I'm not staying here. Sir, if it fails all the criteria is in the police manual for the safe house election. I picked up on that, yes. It's a boat, damn it. I'm not staying here. My objections went unheeded, partly because I'd been outvoted, but mostly because I was too tired to lodge them without all four knees wobbling. Cosmo's neighborhood had obstacle course. Cosmo's neighborhood obstacle course took more out of me than I wanted to admit. Having never even heard of high seas, I thought it fair to assume it wasn't a place where murders take place frequently. Standing outside at the night trader's engine, idling it and quickly drying mud, stinking every inch of me not covered by a trench coat, I could understand why. If I was intent on stabbing somebody, I'd first ask them to step out into the parking lot next door just so I could take myself seriously. I was saying that as I was trying to do something on the other side. High seas. It's a hotel. High seas. Hotel. Oh, wait, no. I am sorry. We're using this. When I said it was a boat, that was not a metaphor, allegory, or even a simile. It was a boat. It was a big boat. And from the outside, it looked like some pony at some point had dropped a large pink-purple pleasure ship in the middle of a parking lot in the midtown Detrot. Okay. Whether that was actually the case or somebody had just built it to look like that, I don't know. But if it was an accident, then entrepreneuring minds behind the Trot's hotel industry had certainly taken advantage. It was one of the few times that I didn't see short of business. Very nearly every spot in the parking lot had some type of vehicle in it. Even High Step, with its all pedigree and posh character, wasn't as busy as wasn't a busy place on its best days. The boat, which must have cost a fortune if it was actually seaworthy, stretched lengthwise across the lot for half the length of a hoofball field. The hotel's name was painted across the bow, and a smattering platforms and catwalks and covered insides, leading themselves. There was a zero utility and pure facade. Many of the younger buildings in the city. About a dozen overpainted tugboats behind the large parent. It was their own private parking garages and little lawns out front. The image that first formed in my mind as we followed Swift's direction was off the highway. It was a great violet whale that beached itself on an asphalt shore and was surrounded by mourning relatives. The name on the bow was Sweetheart's High Seas Hotel. Kid, I realize I don't get out enough, but this is ridiculous. How did you even find this place? I asked, resigning myself to fate as we drove through the lot, searching for a place to park. The city looks very different from the air, sir, she replied, raising her wings for emphasis, and she stared out of the window the landlocked cruise ship. I used to fly over this place going home from training back when they were building it. I always wanted to stay there. Why did you always want to stay here exactly? You can't tell me you're a fan of boats. No. I get seasick at the movies. Turning her head, she spoke over her shoulder, her eyes still in the hotel. I just like the idea of it, you know? I never get to stay in weird places. When we used to go on vacation, Dad would always take us to historical sites, and Mom wanted to go to all the mystical places like old graveyards and forests. It was so boring. I mean, look at it. It's a huge boat in the middle of the city. I sighed and picked the grit out of my cheek. What do I care? What I care about is if they got a shower. This isn't a vacation. We're here to rest and make plans. We'll only be here for a few hours. So, does that mean we're staying? I don't have the energy to argue, so yes. Swift did a little forehoof dance until she caught my leg. Sorry, sir. Turning to the front of the car, I raised my voice to taxi. Come here, sweets. Get Telly in the horn. We need a line of credit, enough to pay for a night here if they don't rent by the hour. Ask her if we can keep this one out of the log until the day after tomorrow. My driver shifted her flanks against the seat rest. And what should I tell her you'll be buying her this time? A gold-plated nose hair plucker, Canterlot real estate, Griffin sex store. I don't care. Line of credit. I'm going to lay here and you two can tell me when the room is ready. This isn't a vacation. I need rest. Okay. Okay, so this is more or less going. Okay, hold on. We're gonna go to blog spot. Here we go. Yes. We're gonna go to. These are all named names. Of course, there's chapter numbers. These are all named names. Probably gonna erase the chapter numbers. Okay. Showing posts with labeled Tully. Chapter 13. Overpost. Chapter 1. Okay. So yeah, let's go ahead and, you know what, I'll just leave that open. So it's going to be in chapter 1. Actually, did I pull it? Yeah. You know what? Tully. Okay. I might have. Okay. Alright. I need to. No. Just. Okay. Okay, so I do have her in chapter 2, but she's. Okay. Okay, you know what? This is taking too long. We can go over here and we can show and all right. And this is chapter 13, so this is 12. All right. That's enough. Okay, so 13. Oh, I need to get a picture. Purple. Azure. Out. No. There's a way to get around that. I don't even remember what today's date is in chapter 16. Yeah, no. Okay. Despite my dour insistence, Swift was all but jingling with excitement in her seat. When Taxi and Swift returned from the small front office, they were sharing a look that made me feel awfully like a rabbit stuck in a snare, listening to the hunter coming. Had I been more aware of the time, and as opposed to barely just staving off sleep, I might have had to thought to ask what the joke I had missed. As it was, they decided to share anyways. Hardy, you'll never guess what happened. Oh, sir, it's fantastic. Swift joined in, making my fur crawl. I put my chin on the windowsill. I don't do guessing games. What's the scoop? Do they have a place for us? Not just any place, Taxi exclaimed, holding her hooves together dramatically and flooding her eyes. Telly gave us unlimited credit. She'd even say she'd let you have this one for free so long as we asked for their specialty rooms. And they're giving us the wedding suite. Mother of pearl. Okay, I need to go over here. Okay, actually. Okay. I think that's. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so now this one, I'm too tired to go look for it. We're about to get a really okay. If you've been following along with the story, then you know just how fucked up this has the potential of being, and also how epic. I want a couple of bites before I get into this. Once we parked up, we were met by a goofy-looking green earth pony colt from the front desk, with whose smile might have been wired in place. He wore the standard hotel uniform, blue sash, white vest, ridiculous sea pony hat, and a disposition so cheerful I wanted to kick him. He seemed completely immune to my deplorable state, babbling happily about the amenities of our room and with the well-practiced ease of somebody who gives the same speech about once a week. We were led around the side of the ship to a private set of stairs, with Taxi Swift oohing and awing over his every word, and myself trailing behind like a sad puppy let in out of the rain. The door he took us to was a more heavily decorated version of every other door, and the words Captain Quarters were in big, loopy letters across it. You know what? Hey. Text pictures. Loopy, huh? Oh, you're not the what? You're. I really. Hey, you know what? Did I save? No, doesn't look like it. Alright. Let's grab the ones up here, make sure it's not. No. Okay, so we're gonna do. Rainbow. I think it's this. Alright. Mainly, I just want to look for the loopy font. Oh, you know what? How about this? Okay. There we go. Okay. Here, I like this one. Convert to image. Height, background. Crap, I don't know the background. 964B. All right. 964B00. Oh. Here we go. I kind of want it to be woody. There we go. It's all right. So we're gonna go ahead and upload from the computer. And honestly, I want you to be big. Okay, you're big. That's fine. Big loopy letters across the top. Now then, if Sir wouldn't mind, I can take his coat to be laundered while he gets comfortable in the quarters. I barely registered that the porter was talking to me as I laid my head on the door sill, my hat brim folded down over my eyes, and I could have rested right there, except my dear, sweet driver elbowed me in the chest. Bro, what? Oh, sure. Both Swift and Taxi peeled me out of the coat and hat, draping them over the Colt's back, and maybe I just wanted to see that little twitch in his heavily engineered good cheer as the muddy, sweaty Colt settled on his shoulders. Regardless, being naked saved my gun harness and weapon. I felt good. I'm not normally a pony who feels alright going around in the buff, but there are times for it. Thank you, sir, said the bellhop, who turned to Taxi, held out the keys in his teeth. Ma'am, your keys. Both to the minibar and the room. Feel free to call us for anything you might need. The phone in the room will ring room service, and we'll be happy to send some pony up right away. Checkout time is noon. I dimly registered the Colt retreating down the stairs and the keys going into the lock, then my partner zipping past me in a blast of orange fluff and wind. Oh, sir, this is so cool! I knew it was coming. I thought I knew what to expect, but the truth was worse than I could have imagined. Lifting my head, I stared into the abyss of lavender, perfume, and nautical paraphernalia. I'll read it in a second. The room is made to look like a plus-size version of a standard shipboard colors. The windows were portholes and the walls were bulkheads. It might have been all right. I might have been all right with that if I stayed in something similar. I'd stayed in something similar in my academy days. The color scheme on the appointments were where everything fell apart. A resurface was some sort of light or dark shade of red, ranging from maroon right down to mauve, with a moderate pass through Circe here and there. Wretched wreaths and fake flowers spilled across the only useful table, and though I suppose most ponies would willingly take the captain's quarters, who would willingly take captain quarters, wouldn't have paperwork on their minds. The bed was a true horror. I'd seen that heart in a drawer in a box full of unicorns that morning, and the day before I'd been stomped and nearly killed by a paranoid spy in her massive meat shield. And before that, a crazed coroner tried to feed my partner an eyeball. Wow, none of that compared to the bed. Okay. Oh. Look up. I think the proper naval term for it was a dinghy. The tiny craft was suspended from the ceiling by four thick cables, falling into the same romantic decorative schema as the rest of the room. Silk sheets and fluffy, heart-shaped pillows sprawled out over the control wheel-shaped headboard. Some monster, cruel and innocent to my bleak condition, had spilled loose dusting of rose petals all over them. Campaign was cooling in an ice bucket, not beer, not smooth, beautiful liquid hops and barley, none of that elixir that might rebuild me in the moment of need, then soften the blow of having to lay myself down among stains of juices and of untoned honey. Just carbonated chimera crap. The dearth of worthy beverages did not bother Swift, who danced around the freakish little room, poking her nose in the cabinets and fiddling with fake instrument board, rummaging through the minibar. I took one more look at the bed, then kicked my rear legs, pulling the strap which set my auto lower. It made a dull, unsatisfying click, and I glanced down at my revolver and realized some pony, most likely a certain some pony with the stupid stripy mane, had nicked my cartridges. Not that it would have been difficult, considering how wrung out I was in the car, but I was still disappointed that I couldn't shoot something. Oh, it's not that bad, Hardy. Taxi put a hoof on my rear and gave me a shove into the room. Like you said, we'll only be here a few hours. Put out my leg over my face and tried a few breaths. They didn't do so much beside make me feel a bit lightheaded. No one will ever know about this, Sweets. I grumbled. You, me, Swift, nobody else. You hear me? My driver's guilty smile said I was not long for this world. Telly may have already told Chief Jade. By the way, she asked me to pick up one of those little boats they sell in the gift shop. She wants it for her desk, just so she can remember this. I fell forward on my forehead and laid with my rear in the air. Death. Death would be good. Right here, right now. Of course. Somehow, Taxi helped me into the shower just long enough to get the worst of the dry mud and the stinking horse sweat, then dragged me bodily into the bedroom and tossed me onto the bed with some kind of judo. Swift produced the ledger, and she and Taxi tore the flake flowers off the table and set to work. I fought sleep, but it was a losing battle. In spite of my deeply revolting knowledge of what most likely had been done 100 times in the sheets I was under, I couldn't drag myself out of bed. I watched with detached interest, drifting in a pleasant fog, as the two mares whose fate I shared started going down the rows of figures, jotting out notes. In an ideal world, we would have been out there with the battering ram, dragging Cosmo out by his ankles and clamping him in irons. This was not, by any means, an ideal world, but that didn't stop me from wishing. Beer would have been nice, I thought, letting my eyes slide shut. Awareness was slow coming back. How many hours had passed? I couldn't be certain. I knew in general that Taxi could be relied on to wake me if something were to happen that she considered urgent or even vaguely interesting. Swift's words were spoken off to the left, and some pony tittered in my response. Something did seem to be a bit off, but I couldn't figure out what precisely it was. My brain was chugging along like a poorly oiled machinery, so that I started with the basics. My hooves seemed to be in all operating order. I was still in that hilariously awful dinging bed, and I was very comfortable, and the bed sheets were warm. Very warm. Too warm. There was somebody in bed with me. I could feel their cold breath on my face. In one hoof, it could have been Queenie. Waking with that thing on my chest was a proper shock. Swift and Taxi were, in all likelihood, the two voices going back and forth, but neither of them sounded close enough to be my mystery guest. Most interesting, whoever it was didn't quite smell like a girl. Upon that realization, my eyes jerked open. It took several seconds to pick out Scarlet Petals, laying there amongst the pillows. His red coat provided excellent camouflage in that ridiculous bed. Propping his handsome face on one shoe, he smiled coyly down at me. I weighed my options. Kicking him would likely be very satisfying, but the satisfaction might cost me some body parts the next time I saw the dragon. Besides, it's entirely possible he'd enjoy it. And I didn't need that kind of relationship with Stella's secretary. Screaming might have worked, but I was still too doozy to get up a good head of anger. He hadn't kissed me awake or anything like that. Still, a line had been crossed and warranted an appropriate response. Rolling over, I dropped over the edge of the boat, turned around, and planted my front hooves and gave it a buck that made the entire room shake. Being as it was dangling from the ceiling, the whole craft, cheeky male, whore included, swung into the nearest wall. Pillows flew all over the place as he let out a frightened whinny, dropping onto the carpet with an undignified heap. Trotting over, I put my hoof on his side and rolled him onto his back and then planted it on his chest. A few petals stuck to his mane as he pulled his hooves under his chin, looking up at me submissively. It would have to do. Scarlet, I said, tapping him on the chest. We are going to have another sitting on your head issue, or are you going to stay out of my bed? You were just so cute, Detective Hardy. I couldn't bring myself to wake you. My bed. Stay out. Period. I gave him a good poke in the gut for emphasis and stepped back. Now, any pony want to tell me why he's here? Taxi, who hadn't moved from her place at the table, pushed Cosmo's ledger away. Most ponies would have missed the subtle signs, but over the years I'd learned to spot them. She was scared. Her eyes were bloodshot from poring over the columns and graphs, but there was a poise in her ears and the tightness of her shoulders that made it truly worrying. Swift hadn't even made an effort to disguise her discomfiture with whatever they'd learned. The leg with her pencil strapped to it was stiffly curled against her chest, and her wingtips spilled right to the floor. She wasn't frowning exactly, but it wasn't a happy expression. Mouthing around until she caught the straw on the little glass champagne near her elbow, Taxi slurped up half of it in one go before she replied, I called Stella and filled him in on the general outlines of our day. He sent us Scarlet. Looking down, I stepped off the stallion's chest. Are you here to liaison, or are you just handing down the snake's directions? Tripping himself back onto all fours, the secretary stood and struck out a loose approximation of a military pose. I don't think any drill sergeant in the world would have accepted an attention that included that much flaunting. Here to help, sir, Miss Stella says the stilettos are standing at your call. I nodded. He relaxed, and I sat myself down on the edge of the dinghy to stop it swinging back and forth. I hope we don't need them, I replied, and then canted my head over at Taxi. We learned anything from the ledger? Swift sounded almost defeated. Sir, it's awful. Care to elaborate? Taxi dragged the little notepad Swift was taking down notes in front of her and flipped back the first 3 pages. Good news, it's Cosmo's actual ledger. Bad news, we can't use it. What? You couldn't break the code? No, I didn't say that, did I? She responded, sounding just a bit exasperated. We just can't use it. This is well above my chromatic pay grade, frankly, and I can't decide whether to burn it or just find a really deep hole and hide it. I moved over to the table and picked up the pad, running my eyes on the facts and figures they managed to dig out of the books. Payments to courier, destinations, let me see. I dragged my hoof underneath on each line and had them match to their attendant number. 6 payments to the academy, payments to the city planning office. Sweet Celestia, is that the mayor's office? He bought off 1/4 of the city's government. Oh, it gets worse. My driver chewed on her lip. She only did this when she was genuinely frightened. We managed to translate the next page before we stopped. It's his blackmail payments. Okay. Update. Okay. So, I don't think. Okay, no. Spindle, right? Spindel, who is a police department. Gets a who's who. Also, blackmailed. Blackmailed. No. Yes. This needs to be at midnight tomorrow. I'm not. Make sure. Okay, no. Spark. Who's who? So blackmailed for Zap. Okay. Midnight tomorrow. Tumblr. Blackmailed. Underage. Zebra. Prostitution. Okay. Turn the page. 2 payments from Officer Spindle, Ace Addiction. 15 payments from Judge Single Spark, Zap Addiction. Oh, I need to go update him. I totally missed that one. $30 payments from Mayor Abject Tumblr, Underage Zebra Prostitution. I trailed off, unable to continue. I'd known the ledger might lead us to some sickening, but it had become a ticking time bomb sitting in our hooves. Each entry was a part of a complex death trap that woven into the fabric of my city. We'd barely underestimated the reach of the King of Ace. My brain was sliding quickly from drowsy fogginess to something resembling terror. Every sense sharpening to a razor blade. Sir, what what do we do? It was an excellent question. Holding the book was likely to be an extremely dangerous. Destroying it was inconsiderable. Using it, for a moment, I was tempted. I long suspected that corruption ran deeply through my city's veins. But here was solid proof of just how rotten the city was. It was infuriating that having that rot exists in the realm of my cylindrical subsistence became solid, choking reality. More than anything else, I felt betrayed by the very ponies who charged me with solving the murders and keeping order. Ponies who'd let themselves slide so deeply into their desperate sins that they were paying sociopathic madmen a royal ransom just to keep their heads above the black, tearing the surfaces of their own inquiries. Part of me very much wanted to pull the trigger, to let it all go, all go public. Let the city burn in the fires of its own hypocrisy and let the princesses sort out the rest. My cutie mark stung for a moment, hiding my brief, vengeful thoughts. It was right. Applied incorrectly, too many innocents would get caught up in the backwash created by the powerful ponies covering their flanks by any means at their disposal. And on top of that, the ledger was essentially solid evidence and admissible by any standards. We'd wind up doing a lot more damage than good. Oh, Scarlet talked. You need to... Yeah, I'm totally distracting myself. If I didn't know any better, I would have sworn I could have heard Juniper giggling nearby. You know what? Juniper giggling somewhere nearby. He was only the sort who could work his way out of situations that seemed impossible with a laugh, a quick touch of quick thinking. He taught me many valuable lessons, but no, none more so than keep it simple. We eliminate Cosmo. The legendary is secondary to that until the movie is safe. If he killed Ruby Blue, we arrest him. If he didn't, we'll drive him out of town. I picked the notepad off the floor and flipped it back onto the table besides the ledger. Was there anything in there that was actually useful? Taxi hesitated and then pulled the pad to her end of the table and began shuffling pages. And I don't really actually know if this is useful per se, but I did notice a strange transaction. She held out a particular section of Swift's notes in her teeth, indicating a line with her toe. 50 flimsy Menzie file chemistry set, 20 arcane viewers sent to Sunny Days Juvenile Hoster Facility? Oh. Okay, no, I thought she was saying it. 50 flimsy Menzie file chemistry sets, and 20 arcane viewers sent to Sunnydale's Junior Foster Facility. I read the line twice to make sure I was matching up the purchase with the intended destination. So, yay for more names. Oh, I don't want 50. I want Flimsy Mimsy. You know, I don't know if I trust that to be a chemistry person's name. But this is a thing. And it's a who's who. know what? There we go. Midnight. Tomorrow. Okay. 2. Place. That's an awful. That's an awfully generous donation for a mod boss, don't you think? Scarlet added, sidling up beside me with more contact than the action required, but not enough to warrant smacking him, a line he's clearly experienced treading. Setting the evidence and the notes down, Taxi gave us both a meaningful look. Oh, it's very generous, especially considering Sunny Days has been closed for about 5 years due to magical contamination. Okay. In the book. That's his drug factory. Oh. Sunny Days. I said with certainly perfect venue. Arcane viewers for Crystal Drives aren't cheap, but with that he'll make those recordings. And he can. With that he'll make off those recordings. He can afford it. The date on that is yesterday. There's another delivery scheduled for next week, and that looks about the same size. Cosmo must be cleaning out every shop that sells viewers in the entire city. If the ledger's right, he's got almost 30 already. Stepping away from Scarlet, he began lightly craning his flank against mine. Did the spy tell you how many hours worth of recording she had? He shook his head. The spy was most cooperative, but she can only give us general numbers. Thousands was her best answers. If they have 100 viewers in a group of ponies watching all of them, they could get through the whole thing, well, faster than I care to think about. We need to move, then. How many stilettos do we have? I asked, picking up Swift's pencil and finding a clean page, which was to make a list of our immediate resources. In general, it required a decent army to attack a fortified criminal position, whether they're experienced attackers or not. Fatalities were to be expected, but the situation warranted maximum force with overwhelming numbers that we just might pull it off without them. Scarlet puffed out his chest and probably managed to spell and replied, 4. Okay, hold on. How many do I have? I have one, two, oh no, I have four. Oh, four, I shouted, spitting the pencil to one side. The escort shrank back against the side of the bed, but his comfort was the last thing in my mind. Four to take down a major drug lab. Well, a zebra, a griffin hen, two ponies, but yeah, do I have that? And zebra, two ponies. The escort squeaked like a mouse had been stepped on. We don't even know how many ponies Cosmo has assigned to that place. My entire backup is four ponies. Why is the sudden serpent? Why is the serpent suddenly getting stingy? We're facing our death here. I snarled, smacking the bed beside his head. It's all the volunteered. Scarlet whimpered, cringing. Marcella insisted that they be volunteers. The rest are guarding the heights. Bucking Scarlet was such a tempting proposition. And I have been confronted with that piece of information. Had I been confronted with that piece of information before my little nap, I probably would have. However, naps are a powerful restorative effect. I recommend them to any pony with a high-pressed job where you risk finding yourself with a higher than daily recommendation of dose of lead in your system. Still, it left me with one unfortunate fact. While the prowess of the Silhouette was keeping the mob out of their neighborhoods, it was impossible to deny it. As an actual tactical unit, a 7 pony was just going to be that many. While the element of surprise is amazing force multiplier, the idea scenarios are few and far between, and I wasn't pleased with the thought of going in nearly unsupported. I drew in a breath, forcing myself not to choke in the room's cloggy, sweet air. My mane was an absolute foul, with whatever scent the hotel made stuff regularly rubbed into the pillows to cover the stains of sex. I wanted another beer. I could have strangled somebody with my bare hooves for a case of it. And even that wretched trash bloom somehow forced down even every day. Still, it was time to play the hand I'd been dealt. I knew Cosmo was holding aces. I just hoped the four of a kind was enough. Alright, what are these characters? I asked Scarlet, picking him up and holding him upright until he got his legs underneath him. They're waiting in one of the Varium annexes, he replied, unsettling flicker of adoration still in his eyes. You have to pick them up. I saw your cab. We should have enough room to squeeze if the Tortellini twins are in the back and Edna sits on Zetta's lap in front and I can squeeze in with you and Hardy. Okay, but I have a last name for the twins. Okay. So, Tortellini. Okay. Okay. So this is actually April. They got mentioned today. Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay, and then this is copy. Can I get this tag? Okay. Swift slid off her chair and stomped over to Scarlet, shoving between us. She gave him what might have been her intimidating glare, coming from just about anybody other pony. It's like, you're not coming. The mistress wants me there, he responded, waving his hooves toward her. Your grandmother wanted to come, but mistress said she had to stay behind and organize things. Ooh, yay, one more piece of candy. I I let my shoulders slide back and asked, why does Stella want you there? You're not a fighter, are you? I I know how security systems work, and those recordings have to be destroyed. He wants some honey there. He trusts simplicity to do it. I'm supposed to protect his interest. Scarlet mumbled lamely. Protect his interest. I snapped, poking the other stallion in the shoulder. He recorded, holding his forelegs to his chest like I punched him. I'm protecting his damned interest. You want the recordings? You're going to wait in the car to get. You're going to wait in the car for them. Got it? We needed Stella's goodwill, but we didn't need a civilian in the line of fire. Scarlet was thankfully amenable. I think I can live with that, so long I know you'll be coming back for me, Hardy. He simpered sweetly. My Adam's apple bobbed, so I tried to keep down my lunch, with the bitter tongue between her teeth, and suppress whatever comment was dancing on its tips. My driver, conversely, was never the soul of reservation. Oh, Hardy, you'll come back for him, won't you? After all, the two of you make such an adorable sweets. If you finish that sentence, I'm going to shoot you. How? I've got your bullets in my glove box. I've got pillows, damn it. Some pony knocked on the door, interrupting the conversation before I could escalate to myself wearing a fine array of ice pack based accessories and our taxi picking feathers out of her teeth. Mostly out of habit, I adjusted the empty gun on my leg before I went to the door, flipped open the one-way porthole, and pushed my eye against it. The porter in the absurd sailor outfit was there, and for once he wasn't wearing a smile that made him look like he'd suffered an attack from an aggressive amateur mortician. If anything, he looked nervous. I cracked the door and stuck my nose out. What is it? I asked shortly, not even the shattering of the porter's hollow face could improve my mood right now. Sir, your coat is clean. His lips tried to work their way into something friendly, but they couldn't. But they could only manage to pain grunts. Turning it sideways, he displayed my carefully folded trench coat. We couldn't empty the pockets, but we gave it a hoof wash. I practically leapt on him, snatching up the coat and swinging it around my shoulders. It felt miles better than it had any right to. Even if my tie still had spots of grime on it, I snuggled into the leg holes and let out outlandish alarm. The inner lining was still warm. Our bellhop was still sharing, and following his eyes to my chest and then down to my gun sitting in the holster. Is something the matter? I pulled the coat shut and his eyes went up to my face. It took him some time to find the words. Um, the lady asked that we have her taxi detailed. Yeah, and he shot a queasy look over her shoulder. Okay, I need a moment. The valets just the valets just wanted to know if you wanted your box of heart polished. Oh, um, okay. Alright. Oh, I'm gonna do this. This ad uses too many resources for your device, so Chrome removed it. Um, computer. Computer. It's too many resources. Is Blackjack here? I, madame, I made radio, so I dared. Am I mad? Am I? I am mad. I am. Dared. I so radio made. I, madame, I. Oops, that's not where I went. YouTube. That actually sounds awesome. I like this song. I went. Wait. Okay, this is bugging me. I missed it. September 21st, 2013. Do I? Okay, so it's a deleted comment. I really hate those. No, it's not a deleted comment. Good points. Okay. Is that the end? I think that's another sign. Oh. that's not. Okay, I need this to be big because I can't see. Okay. Okay. Chessie. U D link to okay. Eight. What? All right, man. So, the fourth Doctor Who. Wait, what? Okay. Next chapter. We're gonna go ahead and hit publish. Confirm. And if you look, we are almost done with Act 1. 6 more chapters. Hopefully tomorrow. You know what? I want to go ahead and set this up. Oh. Okay. On this day. So we went March 8th. Okay. So I have this set up for when I get back on. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and the recording, but I'm going to stay on because I'm going to play that stupid fun game again, but I'm going to take off the headset. So I'm not going to talk to anybody, and I'm going to ignore the chat. So if you try to talk to me, I'm so sorry. Anyways. So control